Hey guys, what is going on? It is Brooke, or the Undead DM, and I'm back at it again, going over the Craftsman subclasses like I promised you before. So, let's just get right into this. I've already stated before that the Craftsman class is a very bad class, one of the worst classes in this book so far. Probably F tier, even worse than that. But, let's see if the subclasses can save it. So we have the Arcane Meisters Guild, the Ermagerd Guild, the Blade Workers Guild, the Calibarans Guild, the Forge Knights Guild, the Mechanauts Guild, the Thunderlords Guild, and the Trappers Guild. So let's start with the first one, the Archmeisters Guild. So read the lore if you want to, but I'm going to continue. So at 3rd level, you know how to do stuff. So the magic item crafting sidebar details the magical items you can create and specifies the level you must have in the class to create each item. And it shows the material costs an item will require. You can craft a magic item by spending multiple days working on it as per the active crafting rule feature. From among those, you can craft a third level, you can craft from among those you can craft at 3rd level, you can craft 5 magic items. You can craft 3 from among those you can craft at 7th level, 3 from among those at 10th, 2 from among those at 14th, and in the process of creating a new magic item, you can dismantle a magic item you have created in order to build a new one from the same category. So let's look here. So it's 100 gold pieces, meaning if you... This is the cost in materials, but because of the crafting feature, you only have to have half that amount. So this is 2 days worth of work at level 3. You can create a bag of holding, really useful item. Decanter of endless water, also really useful item. The eyes of minute seeing, it's alright I guess. Folding boat, situational. Handy haversack, very useful, and that with a bag of holding. Goggles of night, good for characters or races that don't have dark vision. Helm of comprehend languages, good for the not so smart character in the party, I guess. Immovable rod, insanely useful item. Lantern of revealing, situational, but okay. A Purified of health, I believe that's the one that just gives you HP. It's not that good, but it's alright, I guess. Rope of climbing, pretty good item. Wand of secrets, I'm not familiar with this item, so if you know what it is, leave a comment and tell me if that's any good. Overall, 3rd level, it's got some pretty heavy hitters, but then again, these are mostly uncommon items. And the fact that it has both the bag of holding and the haversack, it also does help in that department. At 7th level, so half of this gold, which is 250. Oh god, is what, 125? Yeah, 125, so at 7th level, you'd have to spend... What is it? Oh, you only have to spend a single day, because your maximum is 150. So you only have to spend 1 day to craft these now. Boots of Elvenkind, okay. Circlet of Blasting, okay. Cloak of Elvenkind, it's alright. Efficient Quiver, meh. Eyes of Charming, Pipes of Haunting, not gonna say anything bad about those, because Pack Tactics will come and get me. Portable Hole, it's again another good storage option. Ring of Jumping, no. Ring of Water Walking, it's alright. A Wand of Magic Missiles, very good item. A Wind Fan, it's an alright item. Overall, just the 2 items, they boosted up a little bit, but I think this is the weaker side. At 10th level, the cost is 500 gold, so at 10th level, you would need to spend 1 day. So, pretty standard. Pretty standard. You get Boots of Striding and Springing. Alright. Ever Smoking Bottle. Pretty good item. Eyes of the Eagle. I think that's okay. I haven't actually looked into that item in a minute. Gloves of Missile Snaring. If you want to cosplay as Monk, go right ahead. Hat of Disguise. It's an alright item. Helm of Telepathy. Good for communication. Purifit of Proof Against Poison. At this point, I don't think poison should be affecting you all that much, but it's useful if it's, better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Parafet of Wound Closure. This is an okay item, but it's kind of preparing you for failure. Ring of Feather Falling, really good item, just in case. Ring of Mind Shielding, also a really good item. Slippers of Spider Climbing. Spider Climbing is always good. Winged Boots, insanely good item. This one's kind of stacked too. Level 10 is really stacked with good items. And at 14th level, the gold piece cost is 1,000, so half that. Yeah, you'd have to spend 2 days to craft these. You can get the Belt of Dwarven Kind. Alright. Boots of Levitation. Not as good as the winged boots, but okay. Boots of Speed, pretty okay. Cape of the Mountebank. Mountebank, don't know what that is. Cloak of the Bat, pretty good. Gem of Seeing, Horn of Blasting, it's alright. Adaran's Instant Fortress, pretty good. Iron Bands of Binding, really good. Ring of Free Action, Ring of the Ram, Ring of X-Ray Vision. All these rings are pretty good. The Wand of Enemy Detections, and then the Wand of Fear. Fear is a really good one. This one's also kind of good. I think in a ranking tier list, I think I'd put 10, like 10th level magic items at top tier, because these have some of the better items. Then 3rd, then 7th, then 14th. I think, well, no, actually, I'd put 7th below 14th. Because 14th has some pretty good items, and 7th has the least amount of good items, even though it has the Wand of Magic Missiles. But anyway, also at 3rd level, you can apply the following property. It's an apprentice property called Enchanted, and you can use your intelligence instead of strength or dexterity for the attack and damage rolls of the weapon. Okay, makes sense for your character. There's also this whole little blurb about magic item blueprints and how you might find them, but what have you. At 7th level, you get instant attunement. So you can use your action to attune to a magic item, and can end an attunement as part of the action. And you can use this ability a number of times equal to your intelligence and regain all uses when you finish a short or long rest. Kind of a useless ability. Especially when a lot of dungeon masters kind of have this thing where they don't understand how attunement is meant to work, so it's like, why does it take 10 minutes to do it? Or a minute to do it when you could just use an action. Even XP to level 3 uses it, and I think it's a really good idea. But I don't think it needs to be on a rest system like this, where you can only use it a certain number of times. 10th level, Empirical Enchantment. You can spend 10 minutes and to lay an enchantment on a non-magical weapon. And you can enchant up to 6 during a short or long rest. And for the next 8 hours, it counts as magical. Pretty useless. It is insanely useless at this point, because if you remember back to my original video, Folded Steel, any weapon you craft is now considered magical. So this is essentially useless, because at this level you should already have magic items, and if you don't have magic items, you should be crafting your party items that now count as magical. So this is kind of useless. Sever Connection at 14th level. As a reaction, when a creature that you can see makes an attack against you, or when you make a saving throw, you can end attunement on one item. And until the start of your next turn, you gain a bonus to your AC and saving throws equal to your intelligence modifier. The total number of magic items you can attune to is reduced by 1 until you finish a short or long rest. And you can only use this ability once per short or long rest. So essentially, you can lower your number of attunement slots by 1 and unattune from one item to gain a bonus to your AC and saves equal to your intelligence modifier until the start of your next turn. So it's not even an until the end of combat thing. It's until the end of your next turn. So if you're facing against a dragon and they use their breath weapon and you fail by only like a little bit and you use this, you only get it until the end of your next turn. So if he never uses it again, that's fine. But if he uses it once every other turn because he keeps rolling 6s, you essentially can have no items on you. And magic items are both really good and really bad in this game, so... Or they're assumed that you have them, but also assumed that you don't have them, so it's a bit weird. And finally, the legendary property. You can put a legendary property, and this is the one you get. It requires a suit of exotic masterwork armor. It's called Resonant. By spending a short rest focusing on the magic item, you can attune to it, and as though you could use it as though you were attuned to it while you were wearing the armor, and you can attune to 2 items to the armor and can end the attunement. So basically, this allows you an additional attunement slot, because as a player, you're using an attunement slot to attune to the armor, so it's taking up 1, so now you're down to 2 open attunement slots, but this is giving you your attunement slot of the armor back, plus an additional attunement slot, but it's on the armor. It's alright, I guess. You have to do more research into the other ones first. Ermagerd Guild. You get a fighting style. So you either get defense or protection. Only ones you get. At 7th level, you can, whenever you roll initiative and you're not surprised, you can look at a creature within 60 feet, and they have to make a wisdom save against your DC, or have disadvantage on any attack roll that isn't you on the first round of combat. And a creature with an intelligence 3 or lower automatically succeeds. So this is a very, very bad taunt ability, as it only affects one person. They have to succeed a very common save. And if they fail, they have disadvantage on any attack roll that doesn't target you on the first round of combat. It's not even a repeat save. It's just, hey, you make one save, and if you fail on your first round of combat, you have disadvantage on attacking anyone but me. And then after that, that's it. Pretty useless. Useful if you're fighting a singular boss enemy, but by that point they're going to have high saves anyway, so again, still use this ability. Armor Reinforcement. At its 10th level, spend 10 minutes to reinforce a suit of armor, and you can reinforce up to 6 during a short or long rest. The armor retains its reinforcement until the creature wearing it is hit, after which it no longer is fortified. So you can either make it adamant or banded. If it's adamant, it reduces the amount of damage that a creature takes by 1d8. If it's banded, the creature has a +1 bonus to armor class. Now, mind you, these 2 bonuses, you can only have 1. And on top of that, it loses the ability to be used once they take damage or are hit. So it's basically a one-time use thing, pretty much every short or long rest. Don't know how useful that would be, but okay. I'll give it a pass. It doesn't cost you anything but 10 minutes, and it's up to 6 pieces. It's not that bad, but I would have definitely made this like the 7th level, or maybe even a 3rd level feature. At 14th level, you get Fortify. As a bonus action, you gain resistance to all damage until the end of your next turn, once per short or long rest. Why are we giving them barbarian resistances so late? You essentially have worse... You only have slightly better resistances to everything. Let me put it to you this way. At 14th level, a Craftsman has pretty much the same resistances as a 3rd level Totem Barbarian in 5th edition right now. Yeah. So a Barbarian can just go 3 levels and be just as tanky as you. Good job. And they don't have to spend their bonus action to do it. Well, they do, because to get into a rage. But they have that until the end of combat. You have it until the end of your next turn. And they can do it a number of times, and you can only use it once for short or long rest. Good job. And finally, at 18th level, you get the legendary property Invincible. We're not making any invincible jokes here. So, it can only be applied to an exotic masterwork armor, and while wearing the armor, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you take from non-magical weapons is reduced by 5. So essentially a worse heavy or a slightly improved version of a heavy armor master feat. That's it. But it does stack with Heavy Armor Master, so you can negate up to 8 non-magical damage. But the fact that it specifies non-magical sucks. Really, really sucks, because at this point a lot of enemies are going to have magical attacks anyway, so it's pretty much useless. Blade Workers Guild. You get a fighting style out of a lot more fighting styles. Dueling, great weapon fighting, hand and a half, and 2-weapon fighting. We already know what most of these do, but let's go over hand and a half. While wielding a versatile weapon in 2 hands, you gain a +1 bonus to attack and damage rolls with that weapon. I think that's on par, or at least somewhat as good as archery, specifically for versatile. But we will get to that. And that's all you get. Sabotaging Strike. Once on each of your turns, when you take the attack action, you can replace one of your attacks with basically College of Swords ability. You can disarm a foe by making a strength check against your DC, and on a failed save, they lose the object that they're holding. Or Sunder. The target has to make a dex save against your DC, and on a failure, the target's armor or shield takes a cumulative -1 penalty to AC, and armor reduced to an AC of 10 or a shield that drops to a +0 bonus is destroyed. If a creature's armor or shield is damaged but not destroyed, it can repair it over a course of a short or long rest. Okay, it's okay, but you have to replace your attack, and it is not benefiting you because none of these do the damage. It just replaces your attack, and at this point you only have 2 because of extra attack. So you're replacing one of your 2 very mediocre attacks to get a decent effect, all things considered. But you know what? No, I'll give it a pass. Sunder and Disarm are pretty good. Honed Weapons. I'm starting to see a pattern that at 10th level they all get an ability that does something to weapons and takes 10 minutes. And they can do it up to 6. So you get Honed Weapons. And they gain this ability. So if it's honed, the weapon has a +2 bonus to attack rolls, and if it's sharpened, it deals an additional D8 on hit. And obviously, once the weapon hits, it loses the property. Versatile Weapon Master. Once on each of your turns, you can attack with a weapon you have drawn on the same turn, and you can gain advantage on the attack roll. You can't use this ability with a weapon if you have disadvantage, you can't see the target, or you have used this ability with the weapon within the last minute. You can use this ability once each with a ranged weapon, once with a 2-handed melee weapon, once with a 1-handed melee weapon, and once with a thrown weapon. So basically, it's reckless attack once per turn, but you can only use it on one of every type of weapon that you can use. Great. So now you have to switch weapons, which, mind you, drawing a weapon is an action, as stated in the book. So there's no point. So you're essentially losing damage, but hey, whatever, you know? Whatever. It's fine. We can lose damage, I guess. So, finally, you get the legendary property of Devastating. Your weapon scores a critical hit on 18, 19, or 20. Do I need to explain why this is terrible? Your crit damage is not increasing by all that much. On average, your critical hit damage is only increasing by 3. At most, at this level, there's no point. This does nothing. And also, you're the only one who can use it because of your class ability. So we're just going to skip this and make it... We're just going to say it's below... It is far below anything currently. Calibaron's Guild. So you get a fighting style. You either get Akimbo, Bullseye, Duelist, or Shotgunner. Now, we have no clue what at least 3 of these are, so we're going to go over them right quick. We all know what Duelist is. Oh, no, we don't. This is totally different. So, we're going to go with this in order, because apparently Duelist is totally different. When Akimbo, when you engage in two-weapon fighting with firearms, you don't take a penalty to the damage of the second attack. Okay. Bullseye, you gain a +2 bonus to range attack rolls made using firearms. It must have the sighted property or have a normal range of 80 feet or no longer to gain this effect. This effect does not stack with the archery fighting style. Okay, good, they addressed it. It did address it, very good. Duelist, while you're wielding a firearm in one hand and nothing in the other, you can make a ranged attack and exceed the target's AC by 5 or more. You and exceed the target's AC by 5 or more, you deal an additional die of the weapon's damage once per round. Now, this is strange because it says if you make so it says if you make an attack and exceed the target's AC. My bad. I read that as totally different. Okay, that's all right. I mean, it's not very good because you're only increasing it by the average route damage die, but hey, whatever. Shotgunner. When you hit with a ranged weapon attack using a firearm that has the scatter property, reroll the lowest damage die, and you must neither use the new roll even if it's worse than the original. Basically, Great Weapon Master, but for guns. Not very good fighting styles, but at least the bullseye doesn't stack with archery, so we got that going for us. Apprentice property, so you gain suppressor, where components, material, or martial masterwork ranged weapon with a firearm property. It's a bit of a strange error there in that text, but hey. Attacks with this weapon make only a low thud or a quiet chink audible out to 10 feet and release a puff of smoke. Don't know how useful that is since that's all flavor. But, whatever. Ballistic calibration. So once you shoot with this weapon, it loses any of the properties that it has. So the weapon either deals an additional die of damage on hit, or it crits on an 18 to 20. At least it's better than the Bladework one, that it's not a Masterwork property, so I'll give it a little bit more benefit there, but it's still far too late for this. It is far too late for crit fishing at this point. It's not. You could give it crit fish. You could give this ability at level 1, and it still wouldn't matter. It is not good. Underbarrel grenade launcher. Oh, goody. You can construct an attachment for your gun. You can use an action to attach this launcher to a two-handed ranged weapon with the firearm property, or remove it. If the launcher is ever stolen, you can construct a new one with 100 gold pieces of materials. And you can use your action to fire the launcher at a creature within 60 feet, and each creature within a 10-foot radius has to make a dex save or take 8d6 fire damage, half as much on success, once per short or long rest. So you essentially have a shorter range, shorter spread fireball. Okay, and it's only once per short or long rest. I would have made this the 10th level feature, in all honesty. It's a little bit better. Maybe I'd even put it at 7th, because remember, spellcasters get fireball at 5th, so getting it at 14th is really, really late. At 18th level, you get your legendary property of Burst Fire. So it has to be a Masterwork exotic firearm with the automatic property. When you take the attack action to make an attack with this firearm, you could use your bonus action to make a single additional attack with it. Now, normally I would say this is terrible, but we're going to get to the weapons later and explain why this is okay, because the automatic property, if you use your automatic fire, it takes your entire action. You spray 10 bullets, and it just sprays. It takes bullets away from you, and you attack every creature within like a set range. But you also can't use your bonus action that turn. You basically use everything that you can to use your automatic fire. So this is not that bad. Forge Knight. Portable Forge. This is probably where I got this idea from. So at 3rd level, you construct a portable forge. And you assumed you've been working on it in your spare time. You only bring it into functionality, and you could replace it by spending 100 gold pieces of materials if it's ever lost or broken. While carrying your furnace, you gain the following benefits. Weapons you wield deal fire damage instead of the normal damage type. You have resistance to fire. You can cast Mending and produce flame. Intelligence is your spellcasting modifier for these. So forcing your weapons to deal fire damage instead of the normal damage is kind of a hindrance, because if a person's immune to fire, then your weapons do nothing. So if this was your weapons that you wield, you can choose to make your weapons deal fire instead of they just do it. Oh, they can deal fire damage, so it does. Okay, good. It's a lot better. So it's not perfect, but it's pretty decent. But the fact that it has no functionality to actually be used as a forge currently without like any rules text saying that it can, it's a little bit strange. Only bring it to its full functionality. Yeah, it just says it brings it to its full functionality. It doesn't say that you can use it as a functioning forge. Though I guess that's assumed. Forge Fired Armory. You can add the explosive and heat properties to your melee weapons. When you hit a target with an explosive melee weapon, it creates an explosion at the point of impact as per the explosive property, which doesn't harm you or the weapon. Okay, so you could literally have a rocket hammer. You can be Reinhardt. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Superheated weapons. At 10th level, you can plunge melee weapons or ammo into your forge, heating them up. And any weapons or items placed in there remain heated for 10 minutes. You can heat one weapon or 2 pieces of ammunition in the forge as an action, or up to 10 weapons or 20 pieces of ammunition over 1 minute. And any weapon or ammunition deals fire damage instead of its normal damage. And it ignites flammable objects that it hits, that it's not being worn or carried. And the first time a heated weapon or piece of ammunition hits a target, it deals a d6 damage. Okay, so you essentially give everybody the hex spell on all of their weapon attacks. If they're using ranged weapons, because each one uses a different piece of ammunition, or on their first attack, since it's the first time a heated weapon. So, it's alright. It would have been better if it was all melee weapons and then melee and all pieces of ammunition as opposed to just the first hit, because then it just makes ranged even better than it already is. But hey, whatever. Fire Burst. You can cast the spell Fireball without expending a spell slot. And it's centered on yourself. You take no damage, and you can use it only once per short or long rest. Again, it's a little bit late to be getting Fireball when spellcasters have had it already, but just move it down, it should be fine. You get the legendary property at 18th level called Forge Plate, where you build a miniature furnace into your suit of armor, and while you're wearing this armor, you have immunity to fire damage. And as an action, you can take the dash action and cast the spell Wall of Fire without using a spell slot, and the wall appears at the end of your turn, and instead of creating a straight or ringed wall of fire, it basically follows the path that you took. You essentially get a trail of fire behind you equal to the distance of the firewall. And it's only once per short or long rest. Meh. It's okay. I think that's one of the better ones, in all honesty. Now, this is one of the coolest ones, the Mechanauts Guild. So at 3rd level, you complete the frame for the Mechanauts apparatus. Its blueprints are based on the apparatus of the crab, or apparatus aqualish, as most people will know it. So the statistics are below. You can customize it so it comes with 2 installed masterwork melee weapons, which you can modify with properties. You can replace with different melee weapons when you finish a long rest. It's always proficient with weapons that it's installed, and it can use master or legendary properties. So whenever it drops to 0 hit points, it can't move or act, but can be repaired. Spend 1 minute restoring it. It can, you could spend 1 minute restoring the apparatus' ability to move at half speed, which it loses if it takes damage before it's repaired. You can repair your apparatus at the end of the short rest by spending hit dice, causing it to regain hit points. And when you finish a long rest, you repair it to full, considered to have enough material to do so. And if you ever lose it, it costs 400 gold pieces to replace. And while in the apparatus, you have total cover, and only a medium or small creature can be in the apparatus at the time. You can also use half your movement to either enter or exit, so like standing up from prone. This is the stat block. Go ahead and look at it now if you want. I'll give you a second to pause the video, this way you can read it. Alright, moving on. While inside the apparatus, creatures take half damage. A creature takes half the damage the apparatus takes. And the apparatus acts on your turn. Creature inside the apparatus can command it to move, no action required. But you can only use your action to pilot the apparatus, commanding it to take the attack, dash, disengage, or dodge action. And when you command it to take the attack action, it makes the same number of attacks you would using your attack action, and it uses your dexterity or intelligence modifier for the attack and damage rolls. And while you're outside of the apparatus, you can command the apparatus to wait for you. While following, it moves on its turn to remain within 30 feet of you. Also at 3rd level, yeah, that was all one ability, you get Cockpit Upgrade. So you can choose one of the 3 following cockpit upgrades. Comfortable amenities, where it becomes cozy and allows you to sleep in the apparatus with no ill effects. The ejector seat, where exiting the apparatus costs no movement. Or the loudspeaker, where it can make your voice sound 3 times as loud. Obviously the best one in this situation would be the ejector seat, since if you need to really leave the apparatus right now, it's a better option than just being able to sleep without negative benefits or gaining the effects of a cantrip. At 7th level, you get limb upgrade, so you can either have Arachnotron hands, where you can move up and down. It basically gains spider climb. Heavy suspension, it takes no damage from falling of distance less than 100 feet. And the telescopic frame, while no one's inside, you can use your bonus action to command to collapse down to a medium size or return to large size. And while it's reduced, it cannot be entered. At 10th level, you gain passenger seat. You have installed a second seat. A character cannot pilot the apparatus or command it to move from this second seat, but they do benefit from total cover from outside effects and take half damage from the apparatus. Like, take half the damage the apparatus would take. So you can put a downed ally in it. Pretty cool. Attachment upgrade. So you choose one. You get the Abjuration Generator. You put a shield out in front of you can activate the shield as a bonus action, granting the apparatus temporary hit points equal to your Craftsman level. You can give them a flak cannon, where on the front of your apparatus you have installed a single-shot shrapnel cannon, which can fire at a creature within 120 feet, and it must make a dex save or take 66 slashing damage, half as much on success. Or a rocket engine. You can use your bonus action to light the apparatus's rocket engine, propelling you 30 feet in a straight line in any direction you choose. And if you make a melee attack immediately after this movement, the attack has advantage, and the attack knocks the target prone or pushes the target 10 feet away from you. And the legendary property, Pneumatic. It's a masterwork exotic melee weapon. If this weapon is installed on a Mechanaut's apparatus and it deals more than 1 die of damage on a hit, whenever you roll damage, you can maximize one of the weapon's damage dice instead of rolling it. I think, in all honesty, this is one of the best subclasses due to the fact that it's essentially Beastmaster, but you get a bigger body, and it gets all these benefits. Meanwhile, Beastmaster doesn't really get a lot of these good benefits, but it's a body. And the fact that you benefit from total cover, meaning that creatures just straight up can't attack you half the time. And since the rules for total cover are saying that if an effect spreads around corners and basically ignores total cover, you still get a +5 bonus to your AC and Dex saves. So, because it goes down, because it's ignoring total cover, you still get 3/4 cover in terms of benefits. So you still get that +5, which is really good. Especially it's good for down people, because at 10th level, once you get that passenger seat, you could just slap your downed ally into it, because if that's how it works, you just pick up the ally, you move at half speed, you hop in, or you throw the ally in, and then you hop in yourself, and boom, now both you and the ally are in, and your ally is safe. It's pretty nice. And I think this is the second to last one, Thunderlord's Guild. You get Power Cell, so at 3rd level, you get a lightning generating Power Cell. And when you gain these items, you are assumed to have been working on them in your spare time. If they're ever lost or damaged or destroyed, you can spend 100 gold pieces, yada yada yada. So, your Power Cell gives you a number of charge points represented by an electrical charge, and your maximum number of charge points is equal to half your level, rounded up, and you can spend these points to generate effects, and you gain all expended charges when you finish a short or long rest. So once per turn, when you hit a creature with an attack that deals lightning damage, you could spend 1 or more charges up to a maximum equal to your proficiency bonus, and you could do one of the following effects. You can cause it to arc, where you choose a number of creatures within 15 feet of you, up to the number of charges you expended. They have to make a dex save. And if they fail, they take lightning damage equal to a d6 plus intelligence. You can discharge, where you deal an additional d6 per charge expended. Or Jolt. The creature you hit cannot take reactions, so you get Shocking Grasp. Also at 3rd level, you get Shock, where while you're carrying a Power Cell and you have at least one unspent charge, weapons you wield can deal lightning damage instead of normal, and you gain the cantrip Shocking Grasp and Spare the Dying, where Intelligence is your spellcasting modifier. I think Shocking Grasp is a bit redundant when you have Jolt, but I guess it's just there if you don't want to use your charge. Lightning Rod at 7th level, while you're carrying your Power Cell, you gain resistance to lightning damage, and whenever you take lightning damage from a hostile creature, you gain 2 charges as a reaction. So basically, you expend your reaction whenever you take lightning damage, and you can just put 2 charges in your gauntlets. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Not sure how often that's going to come up, but nice nonetheless. So, static charge, standard 10 minutes, and you enchant either one weapon, a suit of armor, or up to 6 charges in different weapons and suits of armor for unexpended charges dissipate after an hour, and they gain the following benefits. So if it's armor, if it's charged armor, whenever you take damage from a melee attack, you could use your reaction to expend the charge, and it deals a d8 lightning damage to the creature. And if it's a charged weapon, whenever you hit a creature, you can expend the charge and have it deal a d6 lightning damage to the target. I do find it a bit strange that the armor does more, but I guess it does require you to be hit, so it makes a little bit sense. High voltage at 14th level, while you're carrying your Power Cell, and you can spend 5 charges and you can cast the spell Lightning Bolt. Again, this is just really, really late, but there's not really any other time you could put this. You could put this at 10th level and still be okay, but that would require you to spend all of your charges. If this was just you had charges equal to your level, you could put this at 5th level or 7th level and it would be just fine. But the fact that it's half your level is what's messing it up right now. And finally, your legendary property at 18th level is called Electroshock. It can be applied to any masterwork exotic weapon, and when you hit a creature with the weapon, you can expend the weapon's built-in power cell to shock the target, and they have to make a con save, and on a failure, they are stunned until the start of your next turn, or the end of your next turn. And once you use this property, you can't use it again until you take a short or long rest. And finally, the Trapper's Guild. So, you get Danger Sense at 3rd level, where you have advantage on dexterity saving throws against effects that you can see, such as traps and spells, but you don't gain it if you are blind, deafened, or incapacitated. Basically, the Barbarian's Danger Sense. Obviously, as the name suggests. Also at 3rd level, you get traps. No, not those kinds of traps, you goof. Not the Astolfo traps. We're talking bear traps. So you can craft traps designated for quick deployment, which are detailed in the traps section. And when you take the attack action, you can forego one or more of your attacks to deploy a trap. And you can deploy a number of traps equal to your intelligence, minimum of 1, and regain all expended deployments when you finish a short or long rest. You can use an action to disarm and recover a trap that has not been triggered, which also restores 1 use of your trap deployment. So, basically you throw a trap out there, and it either gets used or it doesn't, and if it doesn't get used, then you could just go pick it right back up. Like Junkrat traps from Overwatch. So you get, at 7th level, the Booby Trap, where you take a minute to conceal one of your traps, and while it's concealed, a creature has to use an action to make an investigation or perception check against your DC to spot it. And the first time the trap activates, it deals twice as many damage dice. Ambush modification, where at 10th level you can spend 10 minutes to modify a ranged weapon or up to 6 ranged weapons, per short or long rest, and they get Hairpin Trigger, where they have advantage on the first attack it makes using the readied action. At 14th level, they get Rapid Setup, where as an action you can deploy up to 4 traps at once, once per short or long rest. And at 18th level, you get the legendary property called the Net, where it requires you to put it on a Masterwork exotic ranged weapon that doesn't have the firearm property. And when you hit a large or smaller creature with it, it also deploys a net, which automatically hits the creature. And there are 4 types of traps here. You got the Ballista Trap, where it's a ballista device, and it occupies a 5-foot space, and you aim it in a direction. And it triggers whenever a creature enters the area of a 5-foot wide, 30-foot long line in front of the trap. And when it triggers, it fires automatically. It makes a ranged attack with a bonus equal to your intelligence mod, plus your proficiency bonus. And on hit, the creature takes 2d8 piercing damage. So a pretty standard damage trap. Then there's the Man Trap, which is, it's a hunting trap. It occupies a 5-foot square area within 5 feet of you. And when a creature of small size or larger moves within the trap's area, it clamps down on the leg, and the creature must make a dex save against your DC or take 2d8 slashing damage and be trapped, unable to move. On a successful save, they take half the damage and they're not trapped. The trapped creature or another creature within 5 feet of it can make a strength check against your DC to free itself or have the creature be freed. Trapped creatures of huge size and larger can move normally, ripping the trap from its mounting when they move. So essentially it's a bear trap. Razor wire, so this is just barbed wire. You place barbed wire in a continuous 5-foot square area that you choose within 10 feet of you. It has to be, you deploy a tangle of razor sharp wire into up to 4 unoccupied continuous spaces in front of you, or within 10 feet of you. And each of these areas are now difficult terrain, and whenever a creature moves into it or within the area, they take 2d4 piercing damage for every 5 feet they travel. And once it's deployed, the razor wire cannot be recovered. And finally, you get the Trigger Bomb, where you place the device, you toss the device up to 30 feet away from you, and as a reaction, when a creature moves within 5 feet of the bomb, you press the detonator, and it explodes within a 15-foot radius sphere. Each creature makes a dex save, or take 2d6 fire damage, half as much on success, and any objects that are not being worn or carried that are flammable ignite. I think 4 traps is very limiting, especially when one of them can't even be recovered. The net is okay, I guess, but it's not very good considering how the net has like a 12 DC to escape it. And it doesn't say that you use the net's DC. Well, I guess since you automatically hit the creature, they're automatically restrained. But even so, they could still make a check, so it's not that good. Overall, I think one of the better subclasses here would obviously be the Thunderlords, followed by the Mechanauts. I would probably say after them would be the Forge Knight, and then the Calibaran, and then it would go Trappers, and then after Trappers at the bottom 2 would go would probably go Arcane Masters Guild, and then Armigers. Or sorry, Armigers. Yeah. Armiger would probably go below Arcane Masters, and then Blades Guild's at the bottom, because it's just so bad. Overall, I think the subclasses in some regard do boost it up a bit, but since you don't get your legendary property until obviously the last part of the game, and it doesn't really matter at that point, I think the early features are really what sells a lot of these. The Forge Knight being decent, and their Forge Plate at the end being pretty good, all things considered. The Mechanauts having just a free body on the field that's pretty good, and it has really good upgrades to start. Isn't that bad? The Thunderlords having the ability to just do all three of these options, and they get Lightning Decant, all this, it's really, really good. But some of them just fall short, like the Blade works. But yeah, overall, I think top three, the number one was got to be Thunderlords, and then the Mecha Apparatus, and then the Forge, the Forge Knights, and the bottom three are the Arcane, the Blades, and the Armigers. I know I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but that's how I'm going to say it because it reminds me of the Ermiger girl, because it's kind of funny. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Tune in next time when I go over the Masterwork properties and the weapon properties that the Craftsman gets access to. And then we can kind of judge how well some of these are for... Well, I have to probably separate them now that they're in weapons and armor separation, so... We'll do one armor, and then we'll do one, and then we'll move on to the next class being the Gunslinger. Alright.